for ObjectStudio. And even yesterday, I mean, even though they're here, they're enthusiastic about this work and are continuing to sit down together and work on it while they're here. And every once in a while I get roped into, Art, you got to see this. So I love having engineers who are passionate and enthusiastic about the work that they're doing. So please welcome Andreas Hiltner and Dirk Verleyson.
All right, Arden, thank you very much. So let's get this party started here. So we are here to talk about the new native GUI for ObjectStudio. It's widely known that ObjectStudio already has a native GUI that is mostly implemented in C, and that aggravates most of the customers because they, once in a while, when they're debugging something in the GUI code, they run into a primitive which is sort of a black box for them. And they cannot change it. They have no idea what happens in there, what flags are used, anything that we might be doing wrong. It might be just something small that they can implement themselves. But they cannot access it. I mean, they don't have access to the source code most of the time, and even if there's a whole development environment problem with compilers and everything that you don't want to get into if you're working with Smalltalk. So, the overview of this talk is that first talk about the intention and the goal of the project. Some Windows definitions, so welcome to Windows 101. Architectural overview, what we are doing right now and how it's done. Announcements, we are using announcements here, and finally a class called Test UI, which is something very special about the project that I need to show and tell. Alright, intentions and goals. The current ObjectStudio GUI is getting outdated or having a dated look. Started the implementation in 95 for Windows 95. The look and feels of the individual widgets got updated several times over the several releases of Windows and Microsoft. But we didn't really keep pace in some of the times, so this is our chance to get the latest and greatest into the product. Eliminate primitives, as I said already. Those primitives are aggravating for our customers, not just for them, but also for us, because we need to switch development environments, we need to switch hats from Smalltalk to C, and it happened more often than not that I ended the statement in the C class or in the C function with a period instead of a semicolon. Yeah, try to find that, and when you're having to query your Smalltalk hat and trying to compare code, it's like, it's the same thing. No, it's not. So, easy to maintain and extend, especially for us. The framework is supposed to be easy to maintain, also for the customers, that they can write their own widgets, and also for us to deliver a fix quickly without doing a whole rebuild and sending out DLLs. So I have to go into some Windows definitions. I think when I look through them, most of the people here know most of the have worked on Windows, all working on Windows, and know pretty much the way around it. But just in case, so again, welcome to Windows 101. Window classes, they're not really classes like in the traditional Smalltalk sense. They're basically types of windows themselves that have a common icon, a common window procedure, a common behavior, so that you need to create, you need to tell Windows that your class exists here in order before you can actually use it, before you can actually call here. All of those classes that you register are usually process specific, which means that if you register a class in one process, another process cannot just steal type, but you have to implement it your own. Window procedure is this nice piece of code that is a callback that you register while you're defining the new window class. that gets called every single time a Windows event comes in and for this particular window. So Windows itself basically dispatches the events to the different windows, and whatever comes in is for this particular window in this case, so you already know basically who the receiver is. The behavior of the window, of the control of the widget itself, all the widgets by definition are windows. The behavior depends on how to react on those different messages coming from Windows. Most of the messages have their own set of additional messages that they respond to. Especially list view or some controls like rich edit have a couple of pages of new additional methods or messages that they understand that they expect, and that's basically their functionality, how they implement it. Window messages come in through the window procedure. I already said that. They are just basically numbers, and you get parameters with it that can be anything. Can be mouse coordinates, can be pointed to a structure, can be pointed to a callback, can be pretty much anything, but there's a standard how to pass all this stuff. So the Windows messages coming in have a very standard structure, and depending on the message, that's how you interpret those parameters, and that's also what we need to know here. All right, now back in this model, at least part of it. Architectural overview. I'm going to talk about the class UI view, which is the superclass for all of the new classes that we have in here. It's a superclass to something like a transparent window, the child window, and the UI control, which in itself is a superclass for all of the controls that we're having, like an edit field, list view, tree view, whatever. I'm shortly going to talk about Windows GUI, and then go over to the GUI plus and maybe what the differences are here. So UI view is the main class. It defines, it registers the class, how it should look like, what is the icon, what is the callback mechanism. And that's the first step that we do. The window procedure I'm going to talk about, and then the message map, which is the key element, or the two key elements here. And then I'm going to show you the private grade, where the window finally is created. So register class, what does it look like? I hope you can see something from down there. Very good, excellent, thank you. So it's basically a structure that we fill out with all the necessary information, like what is what's the name, what are the default and standard flags, and there's a background brush handle, so standard background and stuff like that. Everything's passed into a structure, and then finally wrapped or chipped off the windows, and we get a nice little number for it, like thank you very much, here's your token. Something, as I said, that we need to do here, so you don't have to do that. The window procedure here, there are debates and hundreds of debates how to structure a window procedure, and this is the way that I'm doing it so far. So we find the window in our registry. We look up the message map first on a per instance basis, which means that every instance of a control can have their own message map, meaning you can override or you can change the standard behavior for every instance. So if you have a GUI builder and this instance of the edit control is not supposed to react to mouse clicks or so on, we can disable the message right here. It's not just for your edit control, it's for other things as well that you have. First, we check the local message map. If that one doesn't exist, well, we always have a global message map that maps the, as it says, message map maps the message that comes in to a small symbol that we're going to execute. We find the symbol, we execute it with those parameters. We don't find the symbol, we just pass it on to the Windows standard procedure, and we're probably not interested in that anyway. The message map. So we support, we are right now subscribing to about 800 Windows events, which we may or may not be interested in. It depends on the widget itself. The nice thing about it is, if you want to extend it and you're interested in different Windows events, feel free to go ahead. In implementing this stuff in C, would make this message map basically useless. You wouldn't be able to change it, but here you can add it and subtract it as much as you like, which means that either we find it or we don't find it. If we find it, that's great, and when we perform the symbol. If we don't find it, that we just send it on to the Windows default procedure. Now, the private create is where the main central function is called the create window X. So we have the extended style, we have the standard style, again per instance basis, so that each window has the same class from Windows, but has a different background, has different styles, has a different look and feel. We give it a size, position, everything that you need for Windows to create the window by itself. And that's basically for every control, for every window that we are using throughout the entire system. Child window, superclass for all child windows that are not a main windows. You know what child windows are. And we have classes like the tab page, things like a draw tab, and an image display. And I come into those classes during the demo. The UI control, as I said, is a superclass for all controls and the widgets. Controls throughout the entire system. Some of them are subclasses. They're the tree view, list view, button, edit control, but there are actually many more. And during the video you will see that when I scroll through the test class, for every class we have implemented a test script basically. You see that there are actually 100 if not more of those classes, those widgets available to you. Windows GUI is the standard interface to draw stuff on the screen. Windows uses internally, and everybody who was dealing with Windows should be familiar with names like device context, brush, pen, and so forth. I mean, it's a pretty standard way. It's deprecated. You shouldn't use standard Windows GUI anymore for new applications. So we decided to go one step further, which is the GUI Plus subsystem. But that's C++ implementation of the device interface, basically. So here we have it. It adds a lot of stuff that you were missing in Windows, or before Windows XP actually. Stuff like the anti-aliasing, floating point coordinates, gradient shadings, complex math management, something that I always wanted to have, like JPEG and PNG support, without me writing the decoder or encoder. So the base for this GUI Plus implementation, as I said, C++ implementation, is a flat API. We found it by accident, so we don't have to go through all the C++, but we can hook up the C interface directly and make our own classes out of it. It's not, I have to tell you, it's not a high-speed 2D rendering framework, so you're not playing any games with it. That's what Direct 2D is for, but Direct 2D starts with Windows 7, or actually starts with Windows Vista, but nobody uses Windows Vista, so actually it starts with Windows 7. Most of the business applications out there, but still using Windows XP. So right now we are sort of limited to this GUI Plus implementation, which It says it's not high speed. Well, rendering about 60,000 glyphs per second should be even enough for a speed reader to read, versus the 100,000 glyphs per second that you render when you use the standard GUI implementation. So fast is relative here. So business application is fine. If you want to implement paint, that's fine. If you want to implement a first-person shooter, not so much, maybe. So we use that one in the bitmap display, image display, draw pad, for charts, and other things actually. And soon to be used in things like the modeling and mapping tool. And Arden, there he is, was already talking about things that we did during the conference here, and what we dragged him out of his nice little chats that he had. Dirk is the main architect for the modeling and the mapping tool, so he's not really happy with the user interface of the mapping tool that we have. And he said, well, using these things, can we make the mapping tool different? Well, we started yesterday. So we're using announcements. I was happy to read announcements earlier this week, actually on Monday. BA said that they are now supporting announcements. Now we are going to switch over from the old trigger event system using announcements throughout the entire system. We're using exception handling already throughout the system, so we didn't mention it, but we are switching over to the announcements. And so far, it has proven stable enough, fast. I mean, the speed is really great, and all the change update mechanisms. You can set the context with it, you can set the value with it, and that's, I think, is a huge benefit that we're having here. Class Test UI, I have to actually say a few words about that, because we are in the preview mode, alpha mode, so to speak. And every ObjectStudio user or customer, every VisualWorks customer, when you get the next release of Cincom Smalltalk, you're getting a preview version of the new GUI with it. You get this test UI class with it as well. By itself, it's just it's implemented as a singleton, so there's one single instance throughout the entire system. It's not object-oriented. Really, it's basically just a collection of workspace scripts that pop up that I use for testing the individual UI. And you will see throughout the demo that you cannot run this test UI. It basically is just a container for workspace script to open the window, to add a button to it, to react to button clicks, close the window. Open the window to add an edit control, do something with it, close the window. Open the window for a list view, for a tree view. I think you get the idea here. So execute it line by line on the class side will give you the experience and allows you to individually select actions that you want this item, this window, to behave and to execute. So execute line by line, otherwise it will open up, do something, close, and you haven't seen anything. So now to some of the controls in the widgets. Let's see how that works here. So we have the test UI, and I have to, where is it? Where is it here? No, I have to do it over there. Where's my... Oh, wait. Unfortunately, I don't see it on the screen. So, as I said, you select and execute it, so there's the test button. Nothing to write home about it, just a button. Well, it was the first widget that I've implemented because button is the easiest one that we have. Bitmap button just adds a new adds a widget, it adds a bitmap to it or an icon, so you can have bitmap and test here at the same time. Just wanted to show all the regular stuff already works. Checkbox, again, also something that we can use. All the stuff you can use the UI skin. you can use the skin. The command line here is something that you probably see when you switch networks, and it asks you to, is it a home network or a network for a private network? That's the command button. Here is the hotkey, which is an element that I haven't found before. It allows you to just press a key combination. It shows you the key combination right there, and it allows you basically to write nice little tools out there to assign hotkeys and shortcuts to your program. So while I'm scrolling there over here, I have a play window that I cannot really show right now. That's Dirk showing in a few minutes. But I want to show you the rich edit control, and it's longer, so I display the text. And here is some color coding in the text. It's basically a text editor that you can get from Windows. It's not as good as the Scintilla, or a little more basic, but it's the basis for Scintilla. It also supports left to right, right to left, IV support and all kinds of stuff. So you see that you can do all kinds of formatting with it. So next thing, syslink, just nothing. Just you can add an Angular HTML code in your button, and it basically takes you right there if you click on this hyperlink. Transparent window. Yeah, it shows by itself. Transparency, you can set what the transparency is from 0 to 255, and you're good. A Loon tooltip is something that we didn't have before, only the regular size tooltip. You can even add a link to it with a hyperlink. Display bitmap. Here, it actually renders. This is using GUI+, and the rendering of the bitmaps is about 10 times better than with the regular standard bitmap in Windows and the standard API that you have. So, date picker. This one actually uses the up and down buttons that you can configure, but yeah, it's only limited by the API that we get from Microsoft here. Yeah, year, month, date, whatever, and you get a date object out of it. Here we get a date time picker that actually implements the little calendar widget here. So you can move the calendar around. Again, nothing too special, but it's implemented the new UI dialog. Here's the draw pad. Again, GDI Plus, where we can use the anti-aliasing. So this is real time. We can draw not just one, but hundreds of arrows, rectangles. Here we have a double-headed arrow with different styles. You probably noticed that one. Rounded rectangle with rounded edges here, and a different border. You will see that. Now I should be picking it up and move it around. Exactly. So you can move it around. And what you see is that it preserves the order of the objects that we are having here. We can bring it to front, bring it to the back, but right now it just preserves the order that it was painted in. And of course, we cannot just put in any shapes, but also render some text here. The L was picked from 13. And of course, this can move around as well. So, and that's something that we going to show, we're going to use for the mapping tool we would like to use. That's what I said. We just started yesterday on that one. File dialogs, file save dialogs, find dialogs, headers, horizontal view, movable border is something that I like because it shows the speed. I mean, again, real-time event handling. So when the mouse moves, both of them get the update, and updates are announcement framework, and works just fine. Here, those are JPEGs that are about 2-3 megabytes in size, and they scale. So I can scale them down to the size of the controller or the window, and if I nil it out, it's just empty again. Doesn't just work with JPEG files, but also with PNG files. Here's the calendar on its own. The special here is it's a MS, so multi-select calendar, and you can select a certain date. Here the selection count I'm setting to 9, so we have a maximum set that we can do here, and it's selecting a maximum of 9 days here. Print dialog. Rebar is something that we didn't have before, where you can actually put in other widgets on top of a toolbar-like image. So this is a static and a drop-down. Not much else to see. Come on. Replace dialog, tab, or status bar is the next thing. Just regular status bar, you can put in your text in. It just resizes it with the standard window, update it, execute, boom, and there it is. So it really works in this one, but also, again, it resizes. Tab, no, don't want to change, don't want to save that. The tab control, we now support it with widgets, with icons. The icons here are 32 by 32, regular icons could be 16 by 16. It's up to you. If you like the big tabs, go ahead. It really it's up to you what size that you're using here. You see the tracker, the tree view. Dirk is going to show you again. Vertical scroll bar. And that was the end of the demo so far. And I want to lead over to my colleague, to Dirk, because I'm running the base and just enable him to make beautiful interfaces. So, Dirk, please.
Thank you. So as you can see, I'm a big supporter and fan of this project. Being probably the biggest one and also probably the first user of this stuff. Being a developer of modeling method tool, I encountered the problem of, or the limits of the current API every day on a daily basis, so I really look forward to this one. We saw progress of Andreas' test UI, and Saul was having lots of fun with the DLCC and so on. But we wondered how we could use this, whether this was really usable in an application. Can we build real windows with it? What's the speed? How easy is it to use it? So we decided for this presentation to do a comparison between the old and the new. But when we started with it, we noticed, hey, we're missing stuff like formatting in list views. How can we do that? And so there was an interaction between the two of us. And we noticed we could actually quite quickly do changes to list views and so on, do formatting, conditional formatting and so on. So we decided to drop this comparison and focus on doing new stuff, which we can later use in the basis for the new framework. So I will be showing two movies. The first one will be about a remake actually of the launcher we did last year with Arden about the Innovation Fitness Center. It will mostly be based on list views and the possibilities around that. I will then discuss some of the code, quickly show some of the code we used for this. And the second demo will probably attract more interest because it's about whiskey. And I have this huge database of all kinds of whiskeys because it's a hobby of mine. And I created a tree view with that. And I want to show you how the tree view works, what the possibilities are of the tree view. So I start the first demo. So the first thing you see here is on top there is a bitmap, a transparent bitmap. That was impossible before. We had to use a button, put a bitmap on it, and then disable the button. So this is a lot of progress already. The second thing is the class list view. These are the current classes being held. And you see we have different fonts for the first and second column. And we have alignments, different alignments. We have center alignments, we have right alignments. For the required people, registered people, for the hours we have a left alignment. So all this works well. We can sort ascending, descending on the value of the column. And for the hours, we can value on a calculated value, because it has no use sorting on the displayed value for the hours. When we select the class, you will see that we can update the bottom part of the screen. The first thing is a disabled entry field where we can change the font and so on. Then we have a multi-line list or a multi-line text. And as you see, as we change it, the horizontal vertical scroll bar becomes enabled or disabled automatically. The second list is a participant list where we have conditional formatting. If it's a male, we color the text blue. If it's a female, we make it red. And then the last list here is the coming courses, where we show horizontal and vertical scroll bars available, which is done automatically at the sizes 2. Then we have an entries list box, where we set in front an icon, again to show whether a female or a male has entered the club. And if we select a person, you will see that a JPEG or a PNG is appearing. This was also impossible before. We had to use bitmaps. You couldn't render any other pictures. You also see that it does automatic resizing. Maybe not always positive, but at least we do it. No. And then last but not least, we can simply pick up a person, drag it around and drop it on a class to register in for a certain class. So we implement drag and drop at the same time. We can do it the other way around as well. So that's it for the first moving. Now how did we do it? Okay. So to open a window, we simply have used these methods. The open initialization and the post initialization are simply hookups. You don't have to do anything in it, but it's to initialize before you start opening or building the UI. Post open initialization is if you want to do something afterwards. The build widget window creates the main window. With add widgets, we build the widgets on top of the main window. We can initialize the widgets and then we set up announcements. So that's the way it's being built. For the build window, we create an instance variable main window, which we assign a UI view new. And the main things you have to do in your subclass for the window is set your position, your extents, which are points, and the title, which is a text. The rest is being built for you, and the displays the windows show. Now to add a widget, we use the same format every time. I've taken the example of the button. We do an add class rect options form, and we first assign an identifier. We tell it a class. We give it a rectangle, which is the position and the extent. We can assign options. If you don't assign options, you use the default window style, the X style, and we tell them on which form we want the widget to be displayed. And for a button, we can assign text right away. In this case, register. Sorry, mouse not working. Yeah. The list view is identical. So you add the identifier, the class, the rectangle, but here we assign an extra style. When we started working with it, we noticed that the list view, for example, with the default style that Andreas had defined in his test, that the selection didn't show. Well, it showed the selection, but when you exited the window and you came back, the selection was gone. You didn't see it anymore. So that was solved with the LVS show cell always. So we can change the style, the X style, with options, and we have it on the main form. The widget that is being returned, we can then set additional options like the full row select and a low flag drop. So it's actually quite easy, it's always the same. Now for the column layout, we introduced UI list view layout. Probably the name will change over time. So the simplest way we can do is actually we give each column a layout view. So we assign it title, we assign it an access path, which can be a symbol, an array of symbols, or a block. We assign it a width, and we give it an alignment. If you don't give an alignment, it's aligned left. This is what's used, for example, for the instructor. If you now look at the hours column, you see that the access path is different because we only use the symbol. This is the method sent to the object. And we also have a sort access path. This is used if we click the column header. These methods are used to do the sorting for us. If we don't assign sort access path, the normal access path is used. Then we have the image list in front of the list view. So you need to assign an image list, which is a zero-based index of lists of images of the same size, and which is then transferred to the list view itself. And to show the correct image, we have an image path, which is a block. And we do, for example, here we check whether the member is male. If it's true, we give it the 0, because that's the first item we added. And a 1 for a female, which was the second item. Remember, it's 0-based, so we needed to change it for now. Then assigning a font. Again, you see here that we have the access path is now an array of messages. And we assign formats, which is an UI control, which get a font with a type and a bullet point size, a text color, and a background color. Now the most complex one, we kept for last, it's conditional formatting. Here we assign a format in the form of an identity dictionary. Yes. So we have a male format, female format. We assign it to the formats, and then we have a decision blocks which will return a symbol that should be used for the format. If we now initialize a widget, it's very simple. Take the widget, assign it a text, for example, for an entry field. An image field, we simply supply the file name, and the object is being done. The list view is a bit more complex. We fetch the rows of the database, and then we tell the widget we want a detailed view, which is the rows and columns. We give it the image list, we give it the layout of all the columns, we give it the object center. All this is done by the list view itself. Announcements. It's actually quite simple. You tell the widget which announcement to expect and what message should be executed. We have the same one for the entries, which is the widget on the top right. So now I want you to show you the last movie. So I've called it the Whiskey Encyclopedia. It shows the possibilities of the tree view. And you will see as we hover over the text of the tree view, the text format changes. So we can do that without any problems. We get a list of countries that produce whiskey now. If we select, for example, the Netherlands, we see there's only one region within the Netherlands. We don't care about that. So we expand the Netherlands. We see the brands they have. And you also see that the vertical scroll bar pops up and disappears. If we select the brand, we see the bottle already made there, or the type of bottle already made there. It's a normal list view, you can click on it. We can open this one, we see the bottle that's being produced there. It's a blue icon because it's a liquor or a grain whiskey. Now if we look at Scotland, we see that we have multiple regions. And so we will show on the Scotland the regions of this country. We didn't do this for the Netherlands. So it's simply to show we can have different build-ups of the preview depending on the data available. If we now select, for example, one of the regions, you see that the icon in front changes. This is also something we can do quite easily. We will now expand one of the regions. You can select the brand and you will see all the bottles produced for this one. This one was made for Belgium, 25 years old, 35.2% alcohol by volume, and distilled in 1985. And if we open it, we see the bottle again. We can click on the bottle, and you see we can show a picture of the bottle, additional information. It can be transparent, non-transparent, and we simply supply the file name. The rest is being done by it goes really quickly. And these pictures are about 3 megabytes. So I think performance is okay. The last thing we want to show you, if you go to the top, I have an entry field with some special text, also to test. It contains a movie and the API, and we can play that one. You don't hear the audio because the software we use to record will record the audio. But in the live demo, you would hear that audio. This is actually to show how flexible the framework is, because I actually asked this one to Andreas, can I show a movie? I said, no, this is not possible. It was on a Friday evening. I said, I will look at it one day, maybe I can show it with something, and we actually did this, and on Friday even, and 2 hours later I received an email, try the latest package, try this class, it should work. Indeed it worked. And that's the end of my demo.
If you have more information, we are here all week. So, in case you want to know more, you can talk to us or to Arden Thomas, who's our boardroom. And thank you very much. Any questions?
The windows that are being generated in the display, those are windows that are part of the running application.
Yes.
And you have the full range of introspection into those windows?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They are a native window, first class window from Windows. Georgia.
Just a question. You said that you are planning to revamp the mapping frameworks, the mapping tools.
The mapping kit, yes.
Yeah. And you say you are planning to do using the GDI stack.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Since that in Photoshop, Visual Work, Common Base, there are a lot of graphics frameworks, GST between the other, or you can see also or something like that. And I see that people like MetaCase did a beautiful works using GFT and Extended. I ask you why don't take what we already have, improve it, eventually move that using the announcement and use for doing the framework, so we can have a nice framework for graphics in all the two environments, and not just something that works on the auditor side. So you have if you use CTI, we cannot use the middleware. If you improve what we have in the FST or something like that, and you can do something quite good, because the MetaCase guys did something really good. You can use a standard framework that is available to all the customers of Cincom.
Okay. ObjectStudio is a Windows-based and Windows-centric.
Yeah. But so you can't use another studio that is something I don't know. Because I remember
There are
You need ObjectStudio to create a mapping, eventually a model. You can use the global visual works without a problem.
so
Once you create your, you get ObjectStudio to get with visual works.
you can work, if you make something better on DDI, you can work in Linux, you cannot work in OS X. So
here, I mean, the GDI Plus framework has some benefits that we think outweigh the cons of not using it in this case. As I said, the speed is one thing where we said it's slower than that. But again, all the anti-aliasing, all the stuff that we can do there.
It's doing something for one piece of the platform. That's, I don't know, if there are very, I know, but if you can make it something more important, it can run there, you can have on that. So what I don't know is you can use drawings done for little work in
Hey, Giorgio, we're going to have to take this offline so we can get into the next session. So maybe you guys
Yeah, sorry.
can meet up and have a little round table or something.